Hello guys and gals, me Mudahar, and woohoo, make those 10D seed, ladies and gentlemen, woohoo! Now, you might be wondering, Muda, why would you make a video that could potentially get striked off? I welcome if it could, because I'm not here to show you any gameplay footage. In fact, I'm here to get rid of Nintendo so much that I'm blurring out just screenshots from actual articles. Because ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about emulation, okay? Now, remember a couple days ago where I talked about Nintendo GitHubbing projects because they were assisting people to, remove their own keys so they can use to emulate? Yeah, Nintendo's Tears of the Kingdom, ladies and gentlemen, is actually playable from what I've seen, witnessed from my own eyeballs on the PC emulators. Both Yuzu and Ryujinx have their latest game absolutely emulatable, and up to 60 frames per second if you have the best PC parts available right now. Now you might be like, well, I'm really going to spend $5,000 to play a $60 game when I could buy a $300 Switch. Now I've seen that argument, okay, I've seen that floating around. Now what is enthusiast-grade hardware one day can be affordable hardware years later, okay? So I don't have to really bring up this easy debunkable point in front of you, okay? The point of emulation is ultimately preservation. I'm not here to promote piracy. I've never been somebody that promotes piracy. I think piracy is wrong. I think you should pay for a video game if you're going to sit down and invest tens, hundreds of hours into it, which is why last time I talked about it, I showed my receipt of a pre-order for Breath of the Wild, or sorry, not Tears of the Kingdom, sorry, Breath of the Wild 2, the expansion pack, okay? And to understand, I've given Nintendo my money. In fact, I even got the call today where like, hey, come over to the midnight release. I've already sucked the Nintendo dong, okay? I've already gone, okay, you get it? All right, let me tell you, I play Nintendo from time to time too. In fact, here's my Switch. You want to know the last game I played on this? Skyward Sword HD, all right? Bam, here at the menu screen. Let's go. I've been finagling Nintendo in my mouth all the time. Now, to understand, Nintendo's DMCA strike has caused one of my favorite little projects to almost stop. On my Patreon right here, the account that I have, I do pay, or I used to pay for something known as Skyline Emulator, which, believe it or not, was the ability for you to emulate Nintendo games on a cell phone, ladies and gentlemen. No joke. Modern day Android smartphones could actually run some Nintendo Switch games. And why? Because emulator developers are really, really talented individuals. And I also assumed that it was a little bit easier to get a ARM-based game running on an ARM-based processor. Again, lots of intricacies around it. But to show you the absolute beauty of it, you were able to play games like Persona 5 Royale, not playable, but the fact that you could even get in to the game world at 30 frames per second was genuinely impressive stuff to see. Now again, sure, FMVs didn't work, but I never expected Persona 5 Royale to function on my phone. Even if I was never going to use this, I like supporting projects like this because it's just cool stuff to see. And to see this gone away is kind of as heartbreaking as to see the PlayStation 2 emulator, which you could play actual PS2 games at playable speeds on a cell phone with. To imagine, when I was younger, like 10, 15 years ago, dude, I could barely get Game Boy Advance games to emulate. And if you told me I could play a PS2 game on my cell phone, I'd tell you you're lying to me. So again, because of these DMCA tools, because of these DMCA requests, they had to shut themselves down, unfortunately, and we're not really able to get access, sorry, not to see this beautiful emulator develop. Now, to be honest with you, it's all because Tears of the Kingdom has been leaked. Now, imagine the game being leaked so hard that literally the emulation community, the emulators involved with Switch, have gotten so advanced in the last few years that literally almost 4 or 5 days before the game has dropped, the game is actually playable. In fact, if you wanted to emulate Nintendo's Tears of the Kingdom, let's say that you were going at it with the full ethics. Once the game drops, you can back this up to your system, and you can actually enable patches right now that'll get you access to up to 60 frames per second. It's not perfect, but you can get all the way up to 60 frames. In fact, even beyond all of it, there are ways to completely turn off the game's built-in FSR, which is Fidelity Super Resolution, the AMD like upscaler. So you can get like native 1440p, 4K, actually make the game not look like a blurry mess. And even if you weren't somebody that was able to achieve 60, but you're able to hover between 30 to 60, you can lock the game down with a 30 frame patch and get like actual playable resolutions. And I say playable because for a game as beautiful looking like this, I absolutely implore that you, I mean, beautiful looking in terms of art style, okay? It's not like the craziest like game in terms of, you know, graphical tech. But I absolutely believe it should be up to you to launch this game at higher end hardware than that mobile tablet sitting in the Switch and play the game up to 1440p 4K. From all I've seen out of Tears of the Kingdom, it's an actual fun game, all right? Like, it's actually more of Breath of the Wild, which is, again, its own great open world game. So with this dropping in on Friday, you can absolutely emulate Nintendo Switch's most premier end-of-life, I assume, game, because I definitely think they're going to have to release updated Switch hardware. Let's not pretend. This thing has been around for a long time. It was already outdated when it dropped, so hopefully Nintendo drops a Switch too, okay? Maybe then I'll stop using the old Steam Deck, if you will. But of course, you know, one of the questions that you may be asking, how does it run on the Steam Deck? Brother in Christ, it's barely running on some of the top-end systems. You think the old Steam Deck is going to handle it? Come on now, you're lying to yourself. But ultimately, one of the important aspects of this is, obviously, as I denounce piracy, I don't believe you should pirate the video game, you should pay for it. But the thing about it is ultimately it proves one thing, and that a game like this is preserved. It's the same reason why I fight for this technology so hard, because some of my favorite games of all time, Metal Gear Solid 4, a game I made a 4-hour video on. You know, a game's got to be good for somebody if they're willing to sit through that much editing. That game is locked down to PlayStation 3s. So for me, I'm just glad that I can relive that game no matter what. I don't have to worry about any PlayStation 3s existing. I don't have to worry about any of that. Just like for a game as good as this, or really anything out of Nintendo's catalog, once the Switch is done and over with, once it's gone and hit the dust, 10 years from now, I can go back and replay Tears of the Kingdom without ever having to dig up an old Switch, dealing with the resolution intricacies here, and just emulate it on a PC, long after Nintendo's made their sales, and long after it's a thing they have to worry about. I'm totally against piracy, but the reason I'm doing this video, and the reason there's also an emotional component. I'm a little bit mad that Nintendo's heavy-handed DMCA striking has caused one of my favorite little projects to basically cease existence, all over the fact that Nintendo partnered with Nvidia, who basically left a hardware exploit in the original Switch, which has effectively caused their entire system to be basically goat-seed through its entire generation. But that's the world we live in, ladies and gentlemen. So yeah, I don't really like Nintendo all that much in terms of practices. And if you wanted to emulate Tears of the Kingdom, I believe that should be your right. It's your right to emulate a video game. You should absolutely exercise that right as much as you can. And if anybody from the Nintendo camp is going to be mad over it, you're a cuckold, all right? It is what it is. First off, Nintendo ain't paying you to defend their product, okay? I don't see these checks being handed out. Simple as that. So if you want to play it on official hardware like Allah intended you to, that's an option. But if you wanted to emulate it at an actual resolution that your human eye can adore, and a frame rate that is stable, then you should absolutely give the emulators a try. Ladies and gentlemen, this is me, Mutahar. Hopefully you have a great Friday. Hopefully this game is amazing when it drops. Anyways, any fanboy of any console, I hope to God you will always see that every time a fanboy, whether you be Nintendo, Xbox, or PlayStation, every time people who defend plastic seethe, I get a little bit happier inside, ladies and gentlemen. That said, though, I'm gonna go play some more of that detective game that I've been jerking over. Darkest Dungeon 2 just dropped. Gonna play some of that. And hopefully I'll get to experience Zelda with fresh eyes on Friday. That said, though, ladies and gentlemen, stick it to Nintendo. I'm out.